Hello everybody and welcome. I am Hari and I will be bringing you a match, or best of one, in the SLTV Pro Series Season 10, sponsored by ASUS and Republic of Gamers. This is Aftershock Gaming International versus XPC International, or Extreme XPC International. I guess 2 X's is better than 1. Both teams with a little bit of stand-in action going on, but should be a pretty interesting match regardless. Pretty exciting to see some new 6.82b Dota, especially now that the experience and gold changes have been modified a little bit. And looks like we're going to see a first pick Brewmaster from XPC, so I am here casting on behalf of XPC, but I watched one of their games before this, but other than that I have no background whatsoever on what exactly this team likes to do, so that's kind of going to come to me as quickly as it comes to you, and I'm not really going to be able to give any special insight on that. Meanwhile, on the other team, I actually do know the drafter, Kefka, although when I was playing with him I was drafting, so I don't really know what he particularly likes to draft, especially in this new patch. But I did watch some the other night, however I don't recall exactly what they were playing, so pretty tough to say. I think this really could go either way. I do know that XPC played like Weaver, Enigma, Void in the last game, but they did end up losing with that, so I'm not sure if they'll want to go back to that, or whether this first Brewmaster pick will indicate some sort of a 5-man inclination. So we do see a Skywrath coming out from Aftershock Gaming immediately. Could signal Void to follow up. Void's pretty decent against Brew, and obviously synergizes well with Skywrath. I'm not sure if Void was nerfed too hard to still be in the meta. I think probably not. He still does definitely do something, although his weakness is probably just a little bit more exaggerated than before, and the fact that you just push him early and he has less of an impact. Even though obviously the changes to him didn't really exaggerate that, they kind of just made him slightly worse overall, but obviously that means that he's just going to have a more difficult time. But no, it's going to actually be a Nature's Prophet, so Skywrath just the first pick because they like to pick strong supports early on, something I certainly understand, and Skywrath was just a versatile enough pick that it let them go whatever direction they want to. Nature's Prophet similarly, although it does look like most likely going to see some sort of push-up, split pushing oriented lineup, although anything's possible. I mean, you can certainly see the Fighting Nature's Prophet EU build. I mean, this is obviously in EU, so we always have the possibility of some Null Talismans and Blade Mails coming out on Nature's Prophet, but I doubt that will be the case. As far as the bans, we do see Marana and then Venge. The Marana, a relatively obvious ban regarding the Shadow Demon just not wanting that disruption into arrow combo. And the Venge might be a more targeted ban, specifically relating to something they want to do, like potentially still picking Void. Even though Venge isn't amazing against Chrono, I mean, it's still pretty good. Over on the other side, obviously taking out Centaur and Viper. Viper just a very strong 5-man mid-hero, and Centaur good at ganking and has a ridiculous ultimate, which I guess, given that they still don't seem inclined to pick any stuns other than the Brewmaster ultimate ruck, maybe they're just a little bit afraid of the effect that ultimate could have on team fights. So, on the other hand, we do see a very exciting pick coming out from Aftershock, which is that Tusk. So, I mean, it's it's a pretty awesome hero. We don't see a ton of it, but it's quite strong. It's changed a little bit, I guess, for the better, and its Snowball is just ridiculous. Dodging everything, Black Hole, and got nothing on Snowball. So, definitely always fun to see this come out. On the other hand, the Dazzle, well, Dazzle Shadow Demon, it's kind of a classic combination, being able to pull off the heal bomb by disrupting someone and healing the illusions around the person who's disrupted. They probably want some sort of a stun to go along with that. I mean, even something like the Centaur, it would be rather typical for this kind of combination, but they can actually even run it with the Brewmaster in an aggressive tri-lane sort of thing if they want to, or even theoretically a safe lane, although I imagine that the Brewmaster will be mid and they'll just be picking up another hero to go with that combination. Also, Dazzle's pretty good against kind of both Tusk and Skywrath. Both of these heroes, I don't know whether the Tusk is going to be a core or support, that remains to be seen, but regardless, both of these heroes really specialize in just zerging down one specific hero, and Dazzle obviously works very well against that. So does Shadow Demon, in fact. So in that regard, it could be a little bit to XBC's advantage as far as these picks go so far. At the same time, though, Skywrath has pretty good range on his silence, so if you manage to silence one of the supports, assuming the Skywrath is in a good position to do so, when the rest of Aftershock is going on someone else, a la the Tusk or something, then there's certainly the possibility that it completely shuts down XPC's response and therefore gets an easy kill. Also, I mean, the Skywrath plus Tusk is pretty good against Brewmaster, just because, like I said, I mean, they're both heroes who specialize in killing one hero really, really fast, and obviously being able to kill a Brewmaster before he gets his ultimate off could be backbreaking. Hold on 1 second, I'm just going to check something out.
Dire team ban.
Just wanted to make sure that my open mic thing was working. I presume it is. So, Aftershock picking up the Venomancer, indicating that the Tusk will, well, I guess there are core Venomancers, but I would be more inclined to believe that it's a support Venomancer and a core Tusk than a core Venomancer and a support Tusk. So we could be seeing the Tusk mid, or it could even be like a one-position Tusk or an aggressive Triline with the Tusk. I don't think you want aggressive Triline when you know there's a Shadow Demon and a Dazzle on the other team, because you really don't want to end up Triline versus Triline against that. So I imagine, regardless, it's going to be a safe lane Triline. Meanwhile, XPC continuing with their like wombo combo of disruption into lots of damage, having a Sunstrike to go on top of that, another thing which synergizes quite well with Disrupt. So there's that, and Aftershock kind of seeing the exact same thing that I did, which is that XPC really do want a stun to go with their support combo, and banning out the Wraith King. Meanwhile, Silencer banned out by XPC. I mean, Silencer obviously very good against most heroes who want to cast spells, and that's pretty much all of XPC. I mean, obviously, specifically Invoker and Brewmaster he's very good against, and these supports who want to save lives. And then well, this game just took a turn for the interesting. So they took the Necrophos, and then they actually kind of like got counterpicked into the Necrophos, because typically Necrophos is very good against tanky strength heroes, and Pudge is exactly that, but I guess typically the Reaper Scythe is going to actually be coming out on the Brewmaster, but similarly, the Pudge is actually, you know, kind of sustained damage in regards to Raw. Now, obviously with the hook and pickoffs, it's a little bit of a different story, but sustained damage, typically not great against the heal from the Necrophos. Hold on 1 second, just going to change overlays. And, but regardless, the Pudge pick is certainly exciting. The obvious idea here is to set up a disruption into hook. Let's just go over the players real quick. So on XPC International, we do have Relax, who will be taking the aforementioned Pudge, Spartan, who will be playing the disrupting Shadow Demon, Skanks, who will be on the Dazzle, Madara, who's standing in, who will be playing the Brewmaster, who, well, based on his items, could actually be going, I don't know, maybe this is going to be aggressive Triline with the Brewmaster. And then we do have Water, who will be playing the safe lane Invoker. Then on Ashock's side, we have Zeroji, who actually is going to be a little bit of trouble here. Fortunately, he has 325 movement speed, so I don't think they're going to catch him. They're going to try to loop around here, tangoing through a tree. They are going to get the Disrupt off. Madara actually slowed down a little bit, though, so he actually isn't going to... He is just barely going to get in range for a clap. Are they going to have enough range damage? No, they are not. If Madara hadn't actually hesitated there, if he'd just gone straight through, they actually would have gotten that kill. But I understand it's a very risky situation. Since you'd seen heroes, you weren't sure that you were going to catch him. It was actually just a really nice tango through by the Shadow Demon, which actually got him. And he was going to have to tank the tower. But it looks like now this is going to have turned into a little bit of a 4 versus 3. But the Radiant are easily going to back off on the back of that Dazzle Shadow Wave and drop down a sentry to block this camp. So, over on the Dire side, we do have Zeroji, who will be supporting on the Skywrath. Meoma, who will be going as that safe lane farming Tusk. No, he won't. It actually will be a support Tusk. Okay, so I was wrong. Kefka will be farming safe lane on the Necrophos. We do have Venomancer, who will be going solo mid as the core Venomancer in the end. And we do have Nature's Prophet, who will be going off lane. So we are going to see the Triline versus Triline matchup in the end. And I think this 100% favors XPC's Triline. Obviously, they have better supports for going Triline versus Triline. Obviously, Necrophos is pretty good against this, or about in regards to this, because if multiple heroes clump up and they're kind of like trying to kill someone very handily, his heal is going to be good. But at the same time, he's a pretty squishy hero, which I think definitely puts them on the back foot. And based on their positioning in the lane, they understand that completely. At the same time, though, Venomancer should have a field day against a Pudge mid. Unless Pudge does manage to get off a nice hook, then there's a chance he could actually manage to get a kill on the Venomancer. And in the safe lane, I would say typically Invoker is going to be favored against Furion, but does need a couple levels. The biggest thing that the Dire do have going for them is that they do have a Furion and a safe lane Triline versus an aggressive Triline, which is typically something you really like, because the Furion obviously can TP to the safe lane to help out if the opposing team goes on you. So I think this is definitely a very volatile situation for both teams up here. The big thing for the Farian is he does have to make sure he's outside range of the Invoker, because the Invoker will be happy just to cold snap him and prevent him from TPing. And similarly, the Invoker can contribute to the lane, as I established or talked about during the picking phase, with the Sunstrikes. So we do see the Brewmaster did pick up a Ring of Protection to start, but it looks like he is going to be going into Boots first. Pretty reasonable, so we can get in range to get that clap off when they get their combo. So the Sentry was dropped down. I was wondering about this spot for it, because I was going to say that's typically the spot we use to deward. So it didn't actually block the camp, making it a little bit of a weird place to place a Sentry, because it's not like you would actually want to deward the other team in case they were blocking their own camp. So yeah, unfortunately that Sentry isn't going to do much, and the pulls are going to continue, which is a little bit of a problem for an aggressive tri-lane, because obviously, as you can see, the Dire tri-lane is already level 2, whereas the Radiant tri-lane is just slowly going to be catching up to level 2 now, putting them a little bit behind. Pink's coming out on this Pudge in mid. Pudge looks like he's going to be just fine. He can actually tango up to survive through this pretty easily. And still waiting a while for his bottle to come out, because he actually did go for that one Gauntlet of Strength. If he just rushed the bottle like he typically would be looking to do, he would actually have his bottle gold basically now. But at the same time, one could argue that maybe a couple of his last hits have come courtesy of that Gauntlet of Strength. Similarly, the Invoker, 2 points in Exort, no points in Quas, does mean that he has some regen issues against a relatively high harassment hero in the Furion. Furthermore, it does mean that he actually couldn't stop the Furion from TPing, but he has picked up his level 4 point in Quas, and now does have a Forge Spirit to help him last hit and harass a little bit. So, this Venomancer did actually go for Boots first. Generally considered to be a pretty smart decision when you're laning mid against a Pudge. We most commonly see this on the very volatile SF Pudge lane, where I can see a little bit of action top of Disruption does come out. Sunstrike is going to come as well. Soulcatcher guarantees an easy kill there. First Blood is coming out. Mayoma running for his life. Stout Shield trying to do what it can. He is going to start up the Snowball. Snowball's back into the Brewmaster. Might have gotten away otherwise, but ends up not getting away at all. Kefka also going to try to man up. Brewmaster has another clap. Soulcatcher is up on the Necrophos, but Necrophos is managing to get out of range. Now Madara might have actually overcommitted a little bit too far. Furion has TP'd in. The Tusk is back. Tusk is going to have some Ice Shards in just a second here. Probably looking to continue after one down here, since the kill up there is almost guaranteed. Although Salve into Disruption, buying him a little bit of life. Does he have he does have a Tango, so Ice Shards is going to be necessary here. Actually blocking his own teammate is Madara. It looks like they are going to be able to turn this around on Kefka. No, he actually pulled him into the Snowball. Should be able to kill him though, because I don't believe he had any mana left. Does end up going down, and Skanks is running for his life. So does Widium. He has Boots though. Madara has Boots as well. Level 2 clap is going to come out here in a second, but the concussive shot from the side on Skywrath is going to put a halt to this. In the end, a 3-for-2 trade could have been actually really good for XPC if they'd actually just gotten out there. Got a little bit greedy going after Necrophos, which is not typically a hero you want to chase forever. No, actually, no, it was a 2-for-2, 3-for-1 trade. No, so I was wrong. But actually, that is going to end up being a 3-for-2, as they're going to kill Madara once more. And, yeah, kind of just overstaying his welcome a little bit. Because actually, no, one of the kills was actually the Pudge dying mid to the Venomancer? I could have sworn that had happened. No. I don't even know what I'm talking about right now. Regardless, yeah, don't typically want to chase Necrophos. And Necrophos actually gone for 2 points in Heartstopper Aura, so really wanting to attrition out this tri-lane here. Well, the good news about the Furion being forced to TP top there is that the Invoker actually gets to stay in the lane and keep farming, which we can see he has gone for treads, while the Furion actually did have to leave the lane. Pudge going to look for a Blind Hook. Hits the Blind Hook, is going to actually get the Rot and the Dismember off. Sunstrike coming out as well to guarantee the kill here on the Venomancer. And Venomancer getting taken down once again, this time by Invoker, which means he actually does get the experience for that, which is obviously a nice thing for him. Probably the most experience dependent here in the game. We've seen another Disruption, this time on a hero who can Snowball. May not be the best possible target, but it looks like both teams are going to just end up disengaging here, as the defensive abilities for the Tusk are pretty strong. Again, really kind of want to go on either the other heroes other than the Tusk. Although, again, there can be some risk to going on the Necrophos as well. But I would say, based on his squishiness and the burstiness of XPC's aggressive tri-lane, should still be pretty easy for them to get a kill without tanking too much in the way of death pulses. Yeah. So, ooh, wow, giving up a free 100 gold there. Got to be careful with that, Tusk. But Madara does have his Boots as well as his Ring. or his entire Bassi actually done now, which is he turned his ring into the Bassi with picking up a Sage's Mask. Meanwhile, looks like Mind Control wants to get a little bit of revenge here, but needs to be careful. No mana for the hook right now, as Pudge had already tried that, and Venomancer going top is going to control another one of these bounty runes. Not really going to be the big steal in the world of Pudge. There's a regen rune bottom, which he's going to be much more interested in. Have to see if he heads down there in a second here. Did get another set of wards delivered to him, and there's a little bit of action top that I actually was missing. Looks like the Shadow Demon is going to get brought down. TP in from the Furion did lead itself to this, and that is 2 kills, actually 3 kills now, as the Venomancer has rotated all the way top. Shanks doesn't actually have Shallow Grave, has taken 2 points in the heal in order to heal bomb as much as possible, and that's actually going to cost him, well, probably would have died to the dot anyway, so I don't think the Shallow Grave would have actually made that big of a difference. And now they're bearing down on this tier 1 tower. TPs are coming in. We've already got Shadow Demon here. Madara is here now as well. And the 4 pushing in, so they're going to need at least 1 more, if not 2 more TPs. They do have Sunstrike still, I assume. Yep, Sunstrike is ready. Invoker's actually already taken the bottom tower, so regardless, this is not a bad situation for XPC. Well, if you don't consider the amount of kills that they just gave up beforehand. But basically nothing that happens here, unless they give up kills unnecessarily, will actually end up being that bad for them, because they've already gotten a tower, so even if they lose the tower, not that big of a deal. But I don't really foresee this tower going down, and it looks like Ashock agree, as they are continuing to back off here. So we do see Arcane Boots up on the Necrophos. Not something that we typically see, but Arcane Boots are pretty good when you're trialing versus trialing, allowing your team to spam out a little bit more, specifically that Skywrath. And, well, chase going on after Mind Control here, but looks like he's going to get away. Does have Soulcatcher on him, as well as a little bit of poison from the illusions made by the Shadow Demon, but was still able to survive. Should pay a little bit more attention at the minimap, because I've missed a couple things. Am a little bit rusty, haven't cast in a little while. So Dazzle catching up in experience mid here after that rotation, just trying to get to level 4, I would assume, so that he can get that 1 point in Shallow Grave, which is also important for Dazzle to have. Madara messing around a little bit. Really wants to get up to level 6. That is kind of the one thing for them, is they really do need experience now. The only hero that doesn't actually need much experience, the Shadow Demon, actually has level 4. So a little bit awkward in that regard, but I'm sure these 2 heroes who really need it will catch up soon enough. I mean, Panda looks like he's already basically at level 6. Just needs actually 1 more creep of experience, which is going to be huge. Now there is obviously the silence, and intelligently enough, Zeroji is actually maxing the silence, which I like quite a bit. So it will be a 4-second silence, which is instant, and giving them a decent chance of killing Panda, but Panda at 1k health and 9 armor is not going to go down easily. Looks like there is going to be a Tusk that's caught here. Tusk will probably be snowballing up here. Will he actually dodge the Sunstrike? Not really sure. Silence does come out on the Panda. They're going to try to turn on the Panda. Panda is going to be able to get his ultimate off here, though, if he wants to, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Should probably finish off the Tusk. Meanwhile, a Reaper Scythe actually does end up killing him, as the one right click from the Furion does manage to finish him off, despite a really nice hook to try to save his teammate. Dismember coming out on Furion, but again, the big problem here is they've got so much sustained damage between the Brewmaster and the Pudge, and Necrophos is just healing all of this back and regaining all his mana from these kills as well. Necrophos completely turning this fight around, and what looked like it should have been a really good fight there for XPC, but the Necrophos pick really paying off in spades. And I think the biggest thing for XPC at this point is going to be that this Invoker is just going to have to kind of counteract this, because the Pudge and the Panda just can't do enough in regards to burst to actually, get people dead before the Necrophos can heal them back up. So essentially, the Invoker, who is an extremely bursty hero naturally, really is going to have to be the one who's responsible for this. Now, the biggest thing there is just that the Sunstrike was juked by using the Snowball, but I think that was kind of obvious. I mean, I guess he thought maybe that he could time it well enough that there was really no risk of that it wouldn't be possible for the Tusk to actually juke the Snowball, use the Snowball to juke the Sunstrike. But since that did end up happening, they obviously lost quite a bit of damage in that fight. Similarly, obviously they didn't have the Shallow Grave on the Dazzle, which is kind of an important thing. Madara actually went for treads, not something I typically like. Would probably have preferred to see just rushing into that Blink Dagger, because they're really going to need that. I guess they're just going to rely on the Shadow Demon Disruption for initiation, as the Disruption Sunstrike combo does come out here and manages to kill off the Skywrath. So can never underestimate the amount of damage that can deal. Pudge going for early Desperation Hook, juking the... oh, well, actually... No, yeah, he's going to be out of here. Nice juke on the Venomous Gale, though. Pudge playing pretty well. Those Tranquil Boots making him a little bit more maneuverable than normal. And we'll have to see what he ends up going for as well. I mean, double Blink Dagger would be pretty scary from these two tanky strength heroes. But at the same time, the Necrophos will still be very good against that, as he does now have finally 4 points in Death Pulse, and will be going back for a Mechism as well, which I think is pretty standard on Necrophos. And speaking of the Furion, like I said, it will actually be that fighting Furion build. So we've got the 3 Null Talismans going straight into the Blade Mail. Actually, a little bit of action here, as Invoker has actually been caught by a couple heroes. He is going to throw out the Sunstrike, not actually getting a whole lot with it. Hook actually is going to end up catching Mayoma. Mayoma probably going to get rotted down to death here. No mana actually for Dismember. Arcane Bolt's flying, trying to kill the Invoker, but I imagine there's a Shallow Grave, so they probably shouldn't commit on this. Well, they're actually going to commit, but Skank should be able to grave him. Grave is going to come out. Pudge has already finished off the Skywrath as well. Poison is out on the Invoker, though, and I think the Poison probably will be lethal if Venomancer can just get one more right click. Actually pops his ultimate as well. Looks like he's probably going to get brought down. Necrophos, though, managed to finish off the Pudge over on the right side of the fight. Mind Control is going to go down. The Poison dot probably will be lethal here. Will they actually get the deny? Doesn't get... Oh, actually dies to a neutral creep, so basically the same as a deny. And in the end, it looks like a pretty even trade for both teams, but... Again, this Necrophos is getting bigger and bigger, and this is a hero you really do not want to get a scary amount of farm. Now, admittedly, only 36 CS from the laning phase, which is really low, but 4-1, so that's kind of a scary thing. At the same time, Panda didn't die, which is a really important hero to have survived these fights, since you really, really need him to get that Blink Dagger. Invoker, unfortunately, did die, but, I mean, he got his Midas, so he's going to continue to farm well, regardless, and it's kind of a little bit less integral, for him to get one item than it is for this Brewmaster. So that's not going to be such a big deal. Necrophos hanging around a little bit here, looking like maybe he wants one of his teammates to come help out, and looks like that's what the Venomancer's thinking about doing. We've got Venomancer and Tusk rotating down here. Tusk does have that Walrus Punch now, so pretty easy for him to blow up the Invoker. And
Invisibility.
Nope. Looks like they're just going to farm some neutrals instead of actually looking for the killing Invoker. Invoker, obviously with these strength duds, is quite tanky. He's actually going to walk over here trying to Midas one of these creeps, going to see these Plague Wards and realize, nope, that's not happening. Really does want to use his Midas, so I imagine he's just going to make the little rotation over to this camp and Midas from the high ground, although no, he's just actually playing it really safe. I would be a bit more greedy than that. Looks like a Sunstrike did come out on the Nature's Prophet. Nature's Prophet a little bit tanky thanks to his triple Null Talisman, which will be going to the Blade Mail. I guess the Blade Mail is pretty good against this combo as well. So Dazzle Invis did wear off. They're going to look for the Disruption coming from Nighttime. Looks like they will get a Disruption off. They won't actually have the Sunstrike this time, and he actually does a good job with his trees, but it just doesn't matter. The Heal Bomb is way too much, and they end up bringing him down. Nice job there, though, microing his trees on top of him, so making it a little bit more difficult for the Soul Catcher to hit, although the Soul Catcher came right before the trees moved on top of him, so it was still pretty possible. Also made it more difficult with the sun in regards to the Sunstrike. But looks like we are going to get to a tower trade scenario, which typically should probably favor the Dire since they've got slightly better pushing heroes. Radiant don't really have anything that pushes well at all. They've got things that fight well when pushing, but not really the actual pushing heroes. Probably want to give this last hit to the Panda, and that's exactly what happens. So he's actually at 1900 gold now, getting really close to his Blink. Might actually just sell this Bassi to pick up the Blink. No, just buys TP instead, and says we're going to loop around mid. I wonder if it wouldn't have just been a fine choice to sell the Bassi. I mean, I know Bassi is an excellent item to have, and I guess they don't have one anywhere else. Like the Invoker didn't pick one up, and their mid-Pudge obviously doesn't have one. But, no, I mean, he's going to be fine. I guess he's just going to go up here and farm a couple more creeps, and well, they'll be happy with that. Smoking, coming towards the mid. The Invoker did TP in here, so he has to be very careful. Actually has Wex out right now. Has picked up his 1-point nit. So he does have Ghost Walk. Is there any detection on the Dire? There is not. There's no detection. So he, assuming he doesn't get bursted down, will be able to survive this by Ghost Walking away. But he sees them, he knows exactly what's coming. They're just going to push another tower. This is actually a pretty decent situation for the Radiant to be in. Ooh, well, unless the Invoker gets caught here. Skywrath is in position, looking to get a Concussive Bolt off. Is going to come in from the back here. Is going to try to... Oh, Panda actually missing his clap completely. But Skywrath's ultimate missing as well. Snowball does come in. Panda going to pop his ultimate, looking for someone to go on. Pings come out. They have actually caught the Necrophos here. The Necrophos is the hero they have to kill faster than anything else. Trying to bring him down. The mech plus the heal. Nice hook what a sniper hook from Pudge, actually finishing up the Necrophos, and this should be enough probably to turn the fight around completely in favor of the Radiant. Not to mention the fact, obviously, that they're fighting a little bit in the where the Radiant would have a bit of an advantage. Pudge actually going on the Furion, but the Furion's Blade Mail actually doing work on the Pudge, popping it, I assume, before the Dismember, even though I didn't get a chance to see that. Pudge ends up killing himself onto the Furion, but then the Skywrath, who was cycloned up by the Panda Ultimate, does end up going down. So, nice little, actually, 3-for-2 trade there, because the Tusk did end up dying, and only losing the Pudge, killing the Necrophos, who's the most important hero to kill. So this time, really got to give credit to the Shadow Demon there for actually making sure that he caught the Necrophos early in the fight, and then probably yelling at his teammates, the Necrophos is here, come kill this guy, which meant that they couldn't extend the fight, and were able to actually take a win fighting on their half of the map. On top of that, they actually do have the Necronomicon coming out now, which will be a Necro 2 very soon, which also obviously functions quite well against the Necrophos. Necrophos has obviously finished up his mech, as we saw in that fight. We'll have to see where he's going to look towards for his next item. Although a lot of different possibilities in that regard. I wonder if at some point we will be seeing the Aghanims on him, which has a pretty scary effect. But kind of more of a late game thing. I mean, typically not an excellent item. I would expect his next thing probably just to be something that allows him to tank up a little bit. Honestly, even though BKB is typically bad, a BKB wouldn't even be remiss. I mean, if you get a BKB, there's really no damage left on the Radiant, so that's always a possibility. Also could just be something like a Shiva's going into a Heart. Rod of Atos, I guess, is even a possibility on Necrophos. Necrophoses aren't played very often, so it's not like they have really common item builds. So 2 pushing top, 3 smoking into the jungle here. This is a really nice move, because they really won't expect this. They expect people to be top, and surely enough, they're going to catch the Invoker here. Walrus Punch, Skywrath ultimate coming down, and the Invoker does die. Meanwhile, though, there is a little bit of fighting top, and it looks like they have caught Kefka, who is probably a little bit too far forward, although the Furion ultimate flying through, doing a ton of damage. Furion popping his Blade Mail. Furion actually going to win this fight, 2 versus 3. Will the Dazzle have time? Oh, the hook once again! This Pudge's hooks have been so clutch. Wow, coming out of left field. This Pudge. Really impressive play by him. He's had some really nice hooks, which have honestly been pretty big impacts in these fights. But the mid tower does fall to the Dire regardless, and it still ends up being a 2-for-2 trade, although it is a support and a core for 2 cores, so still slightly in the favor of the Radiant. Quite the man-up job there by the Necrophos and the Furion. Just showing the amount of AoE damage that can really come out from the Necrophos and the Furion on top of that, with the Furion's ultimate and the Blade Mail. They really need a mech on the Radiant. I mean, they do have max heal from the Dazzle, which is something, but they really need to be looking towards a mech. Pudge did end up going for a 4-staff, and there's a 4-staff coming out as well. I assume a 4-staff. I'm doubting that's going to be a Dagon, but I guess you never know. But yeah, so a 4-staff coming out on the Shadow Demon as well, and Dazzle, I guess he's the one going for the mech, but support mech is typically not really where you want to be. It's going to usually come out a little bit later than optimal for an item, which obviously has a larger effect the sooner in the game you see it. But, I mean, a support mech is better than no mech. We did see a point booster as well. Pudge, once again, nice hook. Sunstrike is going to come out. Sunstrike does connect, which means Kefka is going to actually die to this. So the Pudge Sunstrike combo is still continuing to pay dividends as they can get kills anywhere along the map just using one hero. I was a little bit shocked there because typically you don't really want to go into a Necrophos with a Pudge. It's usually a recipe for disaster since the Necrophos is just going to keep healing himself and running away from the Pudge, and the Pudge is going to end up dying by virtue of his own rot and the death pulses, and then gets to half and just gets reprecised. But thanks to the Sunstrike, they make it possible at all times. Really got to be relying on your teammate to hit the Sunstrike. The Sunstrike was actually almost a little bit off there. I was wondering, since he kind of put it up just a little bit, and typically when someone's dismembered, you shouldn't have too much difficulty hitting it. But, well, you never know. Had it missed, Pudge would have been in a world of hurt. So Brewmaster is the one who picked up the point booster, obviously enough. We'll be going towards that Aghanims as his first big item after the Blink. Pretty reasonable. Aghanims on Brew is pretty amazing. Pudge, smoked up here with his teammates, is going to end up hooking an illusion and be a little bit sad about it. They actually do ping it out. Even though he was smoked, he actually never attacked, so it didn't reveal it. They still know that there was a smoked hero there. And accordingly, Venomancer looks like he's going to play pretty cautiously here, although there's a possibility for hook. Pudge smoke hasn't quite worn out yet. He's probably going to get into position. Oh, Venomancer, fortunately saved by the nighttime. Meanwhile, Brewmaster is going to manage to get his ultimate off here. The silence wasn't enough to hold him down, and looks like they're going to try to turn this one around. The problem is they don't really have a lot of backup here, and those Brewmaster ultimates not really doing a whole lot running into all these heroes, so Looks like we're going to have to back off. Sunstrike does hit Myoma, doing some reasonable amount of damage, but Brewmaster is going to be forced to back out. Is going to have to blink. It does blink just barely in time here. Heal coming out. Concussive Bolt is going to hit just the Shadow Demon. Looks like the Dazzle might end up getting sacrificed here. Sprout will be out in a second. Silence as well. And I think there's no way the Dazzle's getting out of this. Although, a timely disruption possible. Followed by a Soul Catcher. Can he run for his life? Ice Shards. Doesn't actually have it. No, does have the Necrophos Aura, actually, which kills him. So, just barely getting away there. Didn't have his stick charges cooldown up for just a couple seconds. And on the back of that kill, looks like they are going to be taking this tower. Free glyph used because tier 1 glyphs, why not? And looks like they might continue. The only thing here is the Necrophos doesn't have a ton of mana. Extremely mana reliant hero providing it. Actually, Necrophos going straight for the Aghanims, so no messing around. I forgot what the other change to the Aghanims was, other than the... Oh yeah, so it adds the respawn timer now too, in addition to preventing buyback, which is kind of, I guess, a big deal. But like I said, typically more of a late game thing. Can't argue against Aghanims too much, just because, I mean, it gives a lot of stats, which is something you typically want in heroes. Now, it's not the most cost-effective item in regards to stats in the game, certainly, but, you know, it still kind of provides that. And I guess when you're playing a hero like Necrophos, where you don't know exactly what else you want to be doing, it's always possible to go for an Aghanims. Was a little bit of a risk there. If his aura had actually killed that Necrobook unit, could have just gotten blown up, but just barely. No, well, not just barely. I mean, the tower easily taking care of it. But yeah, he's going to have that Aghanims after this creep wave, and he's going to head back to base actually to pick that up, which means that, well, there won't be any buybacks coming out from heroes who do get Reaper Scythe anytime soon here. Oh, Zeroji. Sunstrike is going to just barely miss. That was relatively obvious. Sunstrike. Ultimate comes out from Shadow Demon, though, and there's absolutely no way that he's going to survive this. Dagon, actually. So it was a Dagon from the Shadow Demon. Could not have been more wrong. Not typically something we see, but I guess with new Max Soul Catcher, it's something you certainly can do. I saw that the XPC actually picked up Shadow Demon in the last game, too, so maybe this is something... And on top of that, he actually maxed Soul Catcher in the last game as well, which is not very typical. Oh, Madara getting slowed down. Doesn't actually have a tier 1 tower here, but he can just TP out if he really feels like he's pressured that much, but is going to live with it. Pudge, 4-step in, Hook, not going to get there, as the 4-step on the Venomancer carries him safely away. But yeah, so what I was saying is maybe this is something that XPC like to do, this Shadow Demon Dagon with the Max Soul Catcher. I mean, pretty good for bursting people down, and then on top of Sunstrike, bottom tower does get taken down by the Invoker Necrobook units, probably with a couple Forge Spirits. Necrophos was there, but actually did fail to get the deny. And, well, the Furion has moved on into a Necrobook of his own to continue to battle alongside that Blade Mill. Looks like the Shadow Demon might like to make something happen here. This is the one thing about this Dagon, is that you've got the Sunstrike anyway, so you've really got a lot of damage when you do manage to get someone Disruption. Is it really, like, that necessary for the Dagon? I guess. I mean, all game I've been talking about how important it is for them to Zerg down the Necrophos as quickly as possible, so I guess that certainly is a concession to that. But the biggest problem for them is, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess they don't lack initiation, since they do have the Brewmaster and the Pudge. Pudge will be going for... No, I was wondering if he'd be going for a Blink after that 4-staff, but playing a little bit safer is going to go into the BKB. There's a fair amount which does kind of go through BKB on the Dire. I mean, we've got the Tusk Ultimate, as well as, I guess, this slow. Yeah, it does pierce small immunity. Ah, it's so nice to be able to read that now. Yeah. So the slow from the Sigil does pierce it, as well as obviously the Reaper Scythe. Although the Reaper Scythe won't deal damage, will just stun. So I think that's probably the most important thing for the Pudge, as he just doesn't want to die to the massive amount of damage it will deal to someone with his health pool. But alright, gotta be real careful here. If he gets scaled, he's not gonna be able to blink out. It means he's just gonna have to TP. TP does come. Oh, Tusk! 4-staffs. No, he gets to 4-staff forward, I guess, by the Venomancer? Yeah, that was weird. I didn't realize that the Venomancer... I mean, Venomancer was like here. Tusk was like here. And we got 4-staff there. Well, I guess reaching to there. Well, anyway. Didn't quite get in range to get a Walrus Punch or a Snowball off, and Madara safely manages to TP out, but was definitely playing with fire there. Invoker has picked up his Blink Dagger. Let's take a look if there's any other big item pickups that we haven't noticed. No, not really. Dazzle's still working towards that mech. Yeah, well, I guess there's one. Making it easy for us. Venomancer, second item choice. Going for an Aghanims after the 4-staff. Pretty reasonable. I mean, the only thing we're really not seeing in the Venomancer is a mech, but obviously there's a mech on the Necrophos, so No reason to expect that. Oh, Madara came back to the lane. Didn't expect the long commitment, but they were playing the long con here. They're going to go for it. He actually is going to have to try to get his ultimate off. Does manage to get off. No silence, actually, from Zeroji, but probably not going to be successful at killing anyone here. Anyone, I probably would have gone for the Skywrath, but ends up cycloning up and then bringing Mayoma back down. His teammates have come in here now. The Cyclone is actually going to bring up the Skywrath. Ultimate does come up from the Shadow Demon onto Momo. Momo is going to pop that snowball, looking to hit someone with it. Is going to hit Madara. Madara does get disruption right through all the important spells. Necrophos has managed to kill Pudge down in the bottom lane, but the fight top still is continuing. Mind Control gets a pretty big ultimate off. That Dagon plus Soul Cancer combo does end up bringing him down. Shanks trying to heal himself, but ends up going down. Water gonna drop as well. This Dot just doing so much work. He did probably have the Aghanims, although I didn't actually see the courier coming out there, so I'm not really sure. But regardless, that Venomancer ultimate just completely wrecking. And at the same time, Kefka getting an easy kill bottom. So what looked like it was going in the way of XPC to some reasonable extent, one miscue like that, and ashockEU right back in it. And I would say more than right back in it. I would say they're in the lead, because XPC's heroes rely on the fact that they need to be winning fights. I mean, don't really have a late game to fall back on. Sure, Pudge, as well as I guess Legion Commander, one of only 2 heroes in the game who scale infinitely, but I mean, probably not realistic to think that that's going to be happening. So, Madara is going to blink forward on Widdims. Widdims going to try TPing out, but does get disrupted by the Shadow Demon. He is going to pay for this with his life. Does pop the Dagon in order to reflect a little bit of damage before dying, but dies anyway. So, yeah, my point is basically that they don't really have any, like, carry hero, quote-unquote, or really late game hero. I mean, they've got Invoker, and that's basically it. Pudge and Panic can both kind of do some stuff, but not a lot. TP coming in from Invoker here. There is no glyph for this tower. Invoker is actually going to go for this, and Necrophos gets it. Invoker probably could have gotten the deny there by using any of his things, but decided just going to focus on getting the Necrophos kill. Probably could have gotten both, but I think Necrophos happy sacrificing himself to prevent the tower from getting denied, and well, I don't imagine Invoker's too unhappy with what he got either. So yeah, as I was saying, Invoker kind of late game, but not really. I mean, not to the same degree as a Furion and a Necrophos. Necrophos actually one of the craziest, scariest late game heroes in the game when he gets really farmed. Obviously going toe-to-toe with heroes like Spectre, although slightly for different reasons than just him being that good late game. But regardless, definitely not a hero you want to mess around with. And the Furion split push going to be a problem at some point. I mean, you can see that they're still clinging to 2 towers, so it is 2 tier 2s to 2 tier 2s remaining. But as time progresses, it's only going to get more and more difficult for them to hold down those towers. Dazzle experiencing the sheer joy of picking up a mid-game bounty rune as it propels him a little bit closer to actually having his mech done. Speaking of having things done, Pudge still a long ways from getting that BKB. The problem is that as towers have gone down more and more, you know, people don't just like run out solo, like, you know, where we caught the Necrophos here, or the Venom here. Typically at this point in the game, if people are past this line, they're just going to be in groups of, you know, 2 or 3 or more, looking to actually do something. And as that is the case, it makes it much more difficult for Pudge, who really predicates his success based on his ability to find heroes alone. So I think this is kind of causing him to slow down a little bit. But the good news is that he's also kind of good in 5 versus 5, in the sense that he kind of in that situation, in that situation does function a little bit like a Windrunner, or Wind Ranger as she is now called. I guess I'm calling Necrolite Necrophos, so I might as well call her Wind Ranger. But in the sense that, like, you kind of just keep throwing out the hooks, or in Wind Ranger's case, you keep throwing out the shackles, and at some point you latch a shackle, or you hit a hook, and then it's like, okay, now we, you know, have a very favorable initiation to start this fight. And then ashock is going to be forced to do something to respond, and then you get the Brewmaster blinking in on top of them, the Meteor Deafening Blast, and hopefully you manage to take out a couple heroes. But at the same time, it's very difficult for them to group up and fight. First of all, because there's some really scary 5-man fighting abilities over on ashock, which the Radiant really don't have. And the Radiant, they have the Brewmaster, they kind of have the Invoker at this point, as he does have a fair amount of levels, but obviously doesn't really compete with the Aghanims Venomancer or the Aghanims Necrophos. And, oh, Necrophos actually picking up a blink, just to try to make himself a little bit more survivable, and then can jump into the fight when he needs to. And then on top of that, if they do, you know, kind of force as we would call it. They're going to get split push some reasonable amount by the Furion. Now, the scary thing for the Furion is obviously he needs to be careful of where the Pudge is. But, yeah, this game of cat and mouse at this point does seem to be favoring the Furion, as he has amassed a little bit more net worth than Pudge, who's been sitting on essentially the same items for a while now. Shadow Demon does come top, sitting at 1k gold. We'll have to see what his next choice is. Doesn't need to earn or anything like that because the Pudge already has one. Pudge, ooh, skin of his teeth. I'm not sure that that kill would have worked out. I think if he was fast enough, he could have actually snowballed. Does actually have a blink of his own, my own now. Interestingly, decided not to take the second point in Walrus Punch. I guess the slow duration, etc., doesn't really matter that much. But at the same time, like, I don't know. So, I guess it could have just been a mix click, but, you know, leveling this up really only increases the damage. Sure, you get a 2-second cooldown reduction, but this actually gives a 5-second cooldown reduction as well as the slow duration increase. And the damage change here isn't that significant. I don't know. I mean, I think it's tough to say. Obviously, you could argue either way. I'm being better. But, Roshan kill is going to go easily the way of the Dire here, sorry. As, Kefka does manage to pick up an Aegis. And Aegis on Necrovos, extremely scary. I mean, one of the best Aegis heroes in the game, up there with the likes of Storms and Leshrax. Because when he comes back up, it's going to be extremely difficult to kill him again. Fortunately, the now 5-minute Aegis means that there's a greater likelihood XPC can just kind of avoid having to deal with this hero altogether and continue to look for pickoffs. It looks like they're trying to maybe set up to take this tier 2 tower top, although maybe just controlling the enemy jungle a little bit as well. Pudge actually did manage to get enough gold from that bounty rune to finish up his BKB. Does have that flying out to him now. Panda has had his items for a little bit now. Looking towards his next item, we'll have to see whether that would be a BKB of his own, whether it'll be something like a Hex, or whether it'll be one of the Aura items. This team doesn't even have drums, so that would be a small cost-effective pickup, but I doubt that's going to happen. More likely, we'll be seeing an AC or potentially a Vlad's. Not sure if Vlad's is really the direction they want to be going, though. The Dire's a lot of magic damage still, so the armor doesn't really matter that much. They don't really have enough melee to justify the lifesteal being that big of a deal. But the smoke up, the ward is getting vision, but the smoke obviously is going to give them a false sense of security. They're actually going to draw towards mid, but it's just illusions. They're going to realize that now, so now they're not really sure what to do. Most of the Dire team is up top, though. I'm sitting right behind Kefka, as a good team does for their one position. And, well, it looks like the Radiant are just going to loop around. They're continuing to search here. We're looking for someone, but didn't end up getting anyone. And now the pings come out that there was a ward here. I guess they did have a gem? Yeah. Gem was what the Shadow Demon ended up picking up. And Dazzle did finally finish up his mech, so he's carrying that around now as well. Still getting a bit scary for XPC. Dire slowly gaining an advantage here. And the only thing the Radiant really have is this extremely farmed Invoker, who does have his BKB now. Putting a fair amount of pressure on this mid-tier 2 tower with the Necrobook unit with some alacrity. Kefka going to just tank that like a champ. Obviously, like I said, they're really not looking to fight if Kefka is there because of that Aegis.
Regeneration.
So they're just going to do what they can to continue to farm up, wait for the Aegis to expire, and then do something. But now that all of Ashock have TP'd to the mid lane, looks like they are going to actually be the ones to aim down this mid for this tier 2. And like I said, I think the Radiant really don't want to fight against the Aegis on the Necrophos. So I imagine that this is actually going to be difficult for the Radiant to respond to. Now, admittedly, they do have a level 16 Brewmaster Aghanim's ultimate, so I think they're not going to be too afraid, but at the same time, maybe they should be. Necrobook is actually done, or Necrobook 3 done on the Furion, who actually has an ultimate orb now as well. And the position from the Dire is really good here. They've got wards set up. Necrophos actually blinking forward just to right-click the tower a little bit. Not sure that's exactly how I would do it. But it looks like this tower is going to fall. Radiant certainly going to look for a deny here, or not. Yeah, I mean, you had like or Forge Spirits, as well as the Shadow Demon, and kind of the Invoker there, so I thought someone would go for it. But no, Pudge does go for a 4-step hook, but that's not happening. And yeah, the Dire are just going to keep on trucking. As long as they've got this Aegis, might as well benefit. And yeah, they've still got a while left on it, so I think the Radiant going to be a little bit of trouble here. We'll lose 2 towers now. Tower gold decreased a little bit, obviously, in the last patch to make it a little bit less scary using towers like this. But no, so actually Brewmaster is just going to go forward. Nice hook once again, actually catching the Furion out. Furion doesn't actually manage to get his blade mail off, is going to melt. Meteor bring him down. Tornado is catching the Tusk up in the air. They're trying to kind of go after Kefka, but at the same time keep him a little bit on the side. Deafening Blast going through doing a fair amount, but the Snowball is building up. They really have to be careful about killing Kefka here. They are going to actually bring him down. The Aegis is going to pop. Furion actually has bought back, TPing back in. Shallow Grave on the Shadow Demon, trying to keep him alive. The BKB on the Pudge, allowing him to just kind of run rampant here. Scarith is going to get caught by a Tornado, which ends up bringing him down. But at the same time, the Reaper Scythe brings down the Pudge, and that's going to regenerate a ton of mana for Kefka, who is then going to get snowballed forward by the Tusk, and the Furion ultimate is going to finish off the Pudge. So, what started off as a very good fight for the Radiant went downhill quickly, mostly just on the back of the Furion buyback and the Necrophos Aegis. I think there was actually a possibility for the Radiant to disengage there, although it's always very difficult when you've got slows like the Venomancer as well as the Tusk's ability to manipulate the battlefield. But I think there was the possibility for them to disengage. I think they just got a little bit too much of the Bloodlust. As soon as the Furion bought back, you really just need to be careful there. Honestly, even once you pop the Aegis on the Necrophos. But, well, hindsight is 20/20, and this tier 3 tower taking a fair amount of damage. Brewmaster's going to buy back, doesn't have his Aegis. Or his ultimate, I mean to say. So, questionable what exactly he can do. Meteor Deafening Blast is going to catch Meowma. Meowma is going to go down in the end. But the tier 3 tower top is already down. Tornado is actually going to catch Kefka. Kefka is probably the one they want to go for. Ghost Walk actually by Invoker. That's got to have been a miss invoke. But it looks like they are probably going to catch Kefka anyway. Kefka does have his ultimate in just a couple seconds. He's going to maybe look to use it. But no, the Dagon is going to finish him off. So they get 2 return kills there off the buyback from Madara. Is going to slow down Madara's whatever item that's going to be, whether that's a Shiva's or a AC we're looking for next on him. But going to be worth it as they do end up holding despite losing the tier 3 tower and taking a ton of damage actually on the range racks. Zeroji, nice. Slowly picked up a Yules. 420 movement speed, not too bad. And speaking of pickups, Furion's still sitting on just that ultimate orb. Obviously the buyback cost him a little bit, but certainly worth it for the effect that it had with his team. Pudge saw the effect his BKB could have in that fight. It actually made him a little bit scary as he deals quite a bit of damage, and there's not really anything they can do about it. He can get on top of people. But at the same time, they do have 1 Force Staff, got the Ice Shard, things like this, so, as well as obviously the Snowball. Looks like actually they are going to catch Skywrath here. Skywrath does have the Yules, so he's going to actually Yules himself, but there's still no way he's going to be getting out of this. Not the biggest skill in the world, so I don't think it's really going to transition into anything. I mean, obviously Roshan's still down for a while, and there's no towers they can really push that easily. Spartan up here all on his lonesome. Furion might be looking to actually do something here. He's probably calling for a rotation, and Tusk is the one to answer that call. Does have his Blink ultimate combo ready and waiting. If the Shadow Demon stays for 1 more creep wave, he is certainly dead. And actually, he's already dead. I don't actually know why he's this far forward. Maybe, yeah, well, who knows, really. But maybe he thought he could just kill the Furion, you know, with his Dagon and everything like that, but that definitely did not end up happening. And for all the good the Scarif pickup did for the Radiant, they just ended up throwing out a free kill in the form of the Shadow Demon up top in return. So, not really gaining a whole lot. If we do see the gold graph going slightly back in the favor of the Radiant, experience graph has always favored the Radiant, except for the very faint moment where it was actually tied. And so the Necrophos has ended up picking up the BKB, kind of as I thought that we would expect to see on the Necrophos, even though, like I said, a pretty atypical item for him. I think BKBs on quote-unquote tanky heroes has become a little bit more acceptable, or just BKBs in general. I mean, we do see Death Prophet. Oh, Furion. Oh, Furion. I was going to say, we do see Death Prophets with BKBs more often. Oh, will they catch him? No, they will not. He does make the trees. He's going to do a little bit of damage to this. Not a whole lot. There is actually backdoor protection. So, yeah, it's actually not really taking any damage. And Furion didn't really accomplish a whole lot with that, but didn't cost himself really anything anyway, other than a little bit of time. But yeah, so as I was saying, Death Prophet BKBs have become more common, so I think Necrophos BKBs is also pretty reasonable. Invoker running around really, really fast, level 21, almost max Wex, and so they're not going to catch the Invoker, they're actually going to catch the Shadow Demon once again, but it looks like the Invoker is actually going to come here for the kill on this Furion, and has a double damage rune, but actually blinks to the low ground, which is not exactly great, still doesn't really end up mattering. as the Furin is going to end up dropping. Necrophos is actually blinked in, is going to actually catch Shanks, or Skanks on the way out. Skanks does go down, but Invoker blinks out. It's going to be just fine. And meanwhile, Pudge catching up with a little bit of farm top. Fishing? Not kidding. Maybe he wanted one of these creeps. I guess he's just about to tee back to base. He's just using up all his mana anyway, as well as his health, just to farm this as quickly as possible. Pudge, not the fastest flash farmer in the world. So Heart up on Mind Control, making him even more scary. Difficult to bring down quickly, which means that he's always going to be getting his ultimate off, as well as putting out a fair amount of slows and dots. Which is pretty scary for the Radiant. Although, 2 BKBs means that some reasonable amount of that damage is going to be avoided. Madara, still not sure what he's going towards yet. I mean, even if he was going for an AC, he could have bought parts of it, but you don't necessarily want to do that because you want to keep buyback. Buyback is on cooldown temporarily, but still, I don't know. I guess I would say that Shiva's is maybe more likely. And there's not really any right-click, repeated right-click damage from the Radiant, or from the Dire, that you want to slow down or affect with either of these things. So maybe just the nuke damage from the initial jump in on the Shivas would be more ideal, but well, I don't really know. Looks like we might have the potential for a clash here up top. I say if people are being very loud in the background, I'm gonna have to ask quiet down for a second as soon as there is a little bit of a pause in the action here. But looks like Skanks has actually found Mind Control. Mind Control has a Force Staff though, as well as a bottled haste rune, so he's gonna be more than just fine. And Furion just hanging around over here. Could actually sell his Null Talisman just to finish that Hex, but decides, no, I'll just go farm Ancients instead, because why not? No, it's still kind of the same posturing going around up here. Madara is up here. The one they really want kind of up here, though, is the Pudge. Where Pudge is walking now is going to kind of make it a little bit too obvious for him, and the Venom with the haste rune is going to come in and do a little bit of damage to the Pudge. Pudge is going to hook him, actually dismember as well. Is there going to be a Sunstrike? He's pinging for the Sunstrike, but there is no Sunstrike to follow, which means, yeah, well, this is when Pudge kind of gets himself in a little bit of the trouble. And yeah, he's going to try to do what he can before going down here, but he is certainly going to fall. Reaper Scythe even coming out just for good measure. Oh, actually, I guess that does accomplish something, which is adds to his buyback time. I don't know if it counted the Reaper Scythe. Like, I know that if someone dies under the effect of Reaper Scythe, he gets the mana back for Sadist. They changed that because of that, annoying delay. Although the annoying delay isn't that annoying since it is stun. But I don't know if that actually gave him... I mean, he did get credit for the kill, but it could have just been from his aura or from the right click. So I'm not sure if that actually counts. Nice quick fingers there for the blink away. In regards to increasing the respawn time as well as getting rid of the buyback. So they are going to go in on Widdiums here, but Skywrath has already actually killed off Shadow Demon before Shadow Demon could even do anything. Shadow Demon still doesn't have that Force Staff up, and the Dagon, while it was paying dividends earlier, just not really getting done what they wanted to. Sigil being used very effectively here by Tusk in order to actually slow down these Panda ultimates as much as possible. Really nice pickup that Tusk against this Panda. BKB up on the Invoker, trying to do what he can, but it's actually going to wear out, and then he's going to end up getting brought down here. Looks like Skanks is going to go down as well, as Shallow Grave is just coming back up. Madara, ultimate over, going to get kited pretty easily. Sunstrike on the buyback from the Invoker, whiffing everything completely. He could blink in here, but probably wouldn't be a very wise decision, and yeah, Brewmaster doesn't even manage to kill Myoma. Looks like this is going to be 5-man into the base, and are there any other buybacks that are available on the Radiant here? We do have buyback available from the Brewmaster, actually, but he doesn't have his ultimate, so he's kind of a non-factor. And other than that, we've got no more buybacks, so got to be a little bit careful here. Looks like they're going to rotate towards the top first. Good thing for the Radiant is the Dire don't have excellent damage to buildings, well, except for the Furin, who actually does have a Necrobook up, so I guess that is a little scary. Ooh, once more hook coming through, but Kefka very quick on the BKB, Hex on the Pudge regardless, so it doesn't really matter. Kefka is just going to continue to right-click down the Pudge, looking to get a Reaper Scythe off on someone. He needs to be a little bit careful with his positioning, so he backs up as his BKB is coming to an end here, but looks like this could be 2 lanes of racks down. All the heroes are back up for the Radiant. Madara still lacking his ultimate for 9 seconds. Is he going to have the opportunity to actually get a cast here? He's actually going to end up killing the Furin regardless. Reaper Scythe does come up, finishes off the Pudge, so that Pudge is not coming back this time for sure. Skanks does get silenced. Will he end up getting brought down inside the silence? Looks like he might just survive as the mech. No, just not enough time to catch the Shallow Grave. Meanwhile, Spartan looks like he will be going down as well. Does get his Dagon off before dying. Doesn't really matter too much. The ultimate coming out from the Panda, just not doing anything. This Necrophos pick has been clutch all game. Water doing also what he can, but that basically just amounts to blinking out and leaving Madara to die. And I think this is basically going to be GG. Yeah, I mean, the sustained damage not Sunstrike trying, not really getting it done against the Necrophos. And, well, Ashock do manage to take this on the back of Kefka's draft and his team's play. So, well played by both teams here, but Ashock proving that they, at least in this specific game, were a little bit stronger. Anyway, I was Hari, and I was here casting on behalf of XPC, but regardless, happy to see both these teams play at a high level. This was the Star Series, SLTV, whatever, Pro Series, sponsored by Asus and Republic of Gamers, and, well, that's pretty much all. Thanks to everyone who tuned in.